All right. Hello, dive pros. If you're running a dive center, you're working as an instructor, or maybe you're even looking to open your own shop, there is one question I am willing to bet has kept you up at night. Seriously, it's the foundation of every single business plan, every sales forecast, and it's also probably the most frustrating question to answer.
So let's just put it right out there. How big is our industry? You need this number, right? You need it to plan your next move, to understand your potential. But as you've probably figured out, a simple, solid answer is, well, basically impossible to find. So why is that? Okay, let's dive into this. Because, and this is the best way I've ever heard it put, the dive industry isn't just one simple market. It's a gigantic, multidimensional puzzle. Trying to boil it all down to one single number, it's like trying to describe an entire rainforest with just one word. It just doesn't work. And today, we're going to unpack exactly why. Okay, so here's the absolute core of the problem. We all talk about the dive industry, but a typical dive shop isn't one business. Not at all. It's actually a complicated mix of at least 6 totally different business models, all crammed together under one roof. And that, my friends, is where all the confusion starts. Think about it. Each one of these is its own world. Selling gear, that's retail. Training divers, that's education. Repairing regulators, you're basically running a service garage. And renting gear is asset management. It's like you're running Avis, but for BCDs. Your fill station, that's a gas station. You can't measure a school on a gas station using the same ruler, so why on earth do we try to do that with dive shops? Any single number for this industry is going to be misleading because it's mashing 6 completely different worlds together. All right, let's zoom in on the 2 biggest pieces of the pie for most shops, gear and training. This is where the puzzle gets even trickier, and it's where the most massive data gaps are hiding in plain sight. So this kind of shows what we think we know versus the reality of what's actually happening. Traditional surveys, they're pretty good at capturing sales from the big major brands, but they completely miss this giant hidden market. Things like a retailer's own in-house brand. Think about what Decathlon does over in Europe. That's a huge blind spot. And what about the diver who buys an Apple Watch Ultra instead of a traditional dive computer? That money is absolutely being spent in our industry, but we don't see a dime of it in the data. And that's not even getting into online-only stores or all the non-dive stuff like t-shirts and hats that you sell just to keep the lights on. In the training market, oh boy, it is just as murky. Using certification numbers to measure the size of the market is just a terrible idea. Why? Well, for one, a training agency has no idea what the final price you charged for that course was. The revenue from all the independent instructors out there, that often gets missed completely. And maybe the biggest black hole of all those unreported Discover Scuba tryouts, which represent a huge, basically invisible part of the market. Now, because this real data is so hard to get, a little cottage industry has popped up, and they're selling what look like easy answers. You've seen them online, right? These expensive market reports promising incredible insights. But I have to give you a really serious warning here. Most of them are totally fake, and they will do nothing but waste your money.
Does this headline look a little familiar? Revolutionary growth, billion-dollar global business with unlimited potential. These reports are perfectly designed to tell you exactly what you want to hear. They're preying on our desperate need for good news and some solid data. But that's all it is, prey.
So here's your cheat sheet. These are the red flags to watch out for. The forecast is always euphoric. You'll find the exact same report for sale on a dozen different websites. They use the most bizarre product categories, like lumping rebreathers in with snorkels. Their About Us page is completely anonymous. And my personal favorite, if you ask for data on, say, BCD sales in Chicago, they'll promise to add a chapter instantly. It's a total scam. Save your $5,000. Okay, so we've laid it all out. The problem is a 6D puzzle, and the easy answers you can buy online are fake. It sounds a little grim, I know, but it's not. There is a clear, proven, and much better way to get the data that we all need. We just have to completely change our approach. And here it is. It's honestly that simple. If you really want to know what divers are doing and what they're spending their money on, you can't rely on incomplete data from manufacturers or agencies. You have to bypass all of that and go directly to the source. You have to ask the divers. Now, the professional term for this is an end-user survey. And this is not some new crazy idea. This is exactly how other major industries get their hands on reliable data. Think about the sports and fitness industry. They do this all the time. You randomly contact a really big sample of the general population to find out who the divers are, and then you ask them detailed questions.
The real power of this method comes from asking simple questions that give you incredibly valuable business insights. Ask divers where they spent their money, and you finally get a real handle on the online versus in-store battle. Ask them if they've dived in the last year, and boom, you can finally calculate the industry's real dropout rate. See, this isn't just abstract data. This is actionable intelligence you can use to run your business smarter.
So, the path to getting clear answers exists. The method is sound. But it leads us to the final and, let's be honest, the biggest hurdle that we face as an industry. And that hurdle is cost. Yeah, because so few people dive, it's only about 1% of the population in the US. You have to contact around 100,000 people just to find 1,000 divers to survey. A project like that, just for the American market, could easily cost $100,000. And that's a huge barrier for any single company to overcome.
But let's just reframe that cost for a second with this analogy, because it's perfect. Right now, running a dive business without good data, it's like trying to navigate a ship into port during a storm, while you're blindfolded and you don't have a GPS. We are all just guessing, reacting to the waves instead of actually steering a clear course. So the cost of good data might seem high, but what's the cost of continuing to operate in the dark? And that is the question I really want to leave you with. Imagine if manufacturers, training agencies, and all of us dive center owners collaborated on this. The cost for each of us would be tiny, but the benefit for the whole industry would be immeasurable. So the real question isn't, can we afford good data? It's, is sailing blind ultimately way more expensive?